I have been longing for a Silence of the Lambs replacement ever since I first watched it, and, thankfully, this new Nicolas Cage horror movie ends my search. Soon after its release in 1991, The Silence of the Lambs became a worldwide hit, grossing over $270 million against a relatively small budget of $19 million. However, the film's success extended far beyond its box office numbers. In the years that followed, it became one of the most influential films, inspiring several crime thrillers that attempted to replicate it but fell short. Over 3 decades after its release, The Silence of the Lambs still holds up incredibly well and sustains its legacy as one of the best psychological horror movies ever. Owing to this, when many critics were comparing Nicolas Cage's new horror film with The Silence of the Lambs, I could not help but wonder whether the comparison was hyperbole or had some semblance of truth. Although I have faith in Nicolas Cage and love what he brings to the screen with each horror movie, I carefully measured my expectations. Surprisingly, the film went well above and beyond. Like The Silence of the Lambs, Longlegs keeps its villain's screen time brief but impactful. Both Anthony Hopkins and Nicolas Cage have incredible screen presence as villains. It would be unfair to say that Longlegs is narratively similar to Silence of the Lambs because, despite structural similarities, the two films are significantly different. However, it is still hard not to notice how Longlegs, knowingly or unknowingly, adopts some of the elements from the Jonathan Demme film. Among these, the most noticeable element is Longlegs' treatment of its villain. Like Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal Lecter, Nicolas Cage's titular Longlegs barely has any screen time in the film. However, when he does appear, Cage's brilliant performance and the eerie ambiguousness with which his character is portrayed are enough to creep under one's skin. Cage's Longlegs is not as articulate and charming as Hopkins' Lecter but exudes a similar menacing but friendly presence that looms even when he is not on screen. Micah Monroe's Lee Harker is reminiscent of Jodie Foster's Clarice Starling. Both characters are misfits in their respective stories. Both Clarice Starling and Lee Harker are treated as outsiders in the FBI. While Clarice struggles to find her place in a male-dominant workplace, Lee Harker's reserved demeanor is often seen as a liability. In a brief but memorable scene from Longlegs, I could not help but see Lee Harker as the perfect counterpart to Clarice Starling. When Lee visits her boss home, she briefly gets to interact with his daughter, who asks her if it is scary being a female FBI agent. Although Lee remains restrained, she says yes with calm reassurance, reminiscent of all the moments from Silence of the Lambs where Clarice stands as a stark contrast against the male recruits in her organization. Despite its lack of terrors, it is a powerful scene because it shows how the young girl is the only character who bothers empathizing with Lee without being judgmental. Many story details in Longlegs also suggest that, like Clarice, Lee ended up joining law enforcement because of her childhood traumas. The two films also feature similar interrogation scenes where Lee and Clarice are thrown into the lion's den, making them face the worst of humanity. After their respective encounters with the central serial killers, both characters face blatant sexism. While Lecter's neighboring inmate flings semen at Clarice, Lee's superior blames her instead of showing any empathy when the interrogation does not go as planned. Only a female agent then comes forward and insists on dropping her back home. Longlegs is more supernatural but unfolds like a typical crime procedural. Some of Longlegs' mysteries are grounded in realism. The devil in Longlegs, doll in Longlegs. As I mentioned earlier, despite the many similarities, Longlegs and The Silence of the Lambs are narratively two distinct movies. The primary reason behind this is that Longlegs has many supernatural elements. Unlike Jodie Foster's Clarice Starling, Micah Monroe's Lee Harker is clairvoyant, allowing her to see things in crimes that extend beyond her co-workers' human senses. Longlegs' climactic murder mystery twist is also supernatural and is more reminiscent of films like Hereditary than crime procedural thrillers like The Silence of the Lambs. However, despite this, Longlegs unfolds like a typical procedural in its first half, immersing viewers and making them active participants in its puzzle box of mysteries. Its procedural elements are sometimes predictable and lack the nuance that The Silence of the Lambs brings to the table. But it generates enough intrigue with these story aspects to keep one captivated till its white-knuckling supernatural twists begin surfacing. Longlegs' climax is as thrilling as The Silence of the Lambs. Both films have terrifyingly ambiguous developments in their endings. Jodie Foster in the night vision finale of The Silence of the Lambs. In The Silence of the Lambs ending arc, Clarice Starling faces one of her biggest challenges when she struggles to find Gum in the dark while he stalks her wearing night vision glasses. Starling's odds of survival in this situation seem incredibly low, but she, fortunately, reacts quickly and shoots Gum when he cocks his revolver. Even though I am well aware of the outcome of this scene, every time I rewatch it, I cannot help but hold my breath when Starling struggles to find Gum.